Belgrade is the capital of Serbia, the biggest republic of the fractured Federation of Yugoslavia. This is a city cloaked in lies. They're peddled in the media, which is intimidated by the president, Slobodan Milosevic. The big lie is that Yugoslavia is the victim of an international conspiracy to break it up. It's the only way that Milosevic can explain why the country is crippled by sanctions, threatened with airstrikes. There are few independent newspapers left. This is one that dares to tell the truth. For the Dnevny or Daily Telegraph to survive for 3 years is cause for celebration. It gives a voice to journalists and politicians, to student leaders and business people who want to break the suffocating grip of the old communist regime. Publisher and editor is Slavko Shuruvia, and despite tonight's gaiety, he's going broke.
My paper is banned. They are confiscating every copy they find, but I still succeed to smuggle about 20,000 copies every day from Podgorica to Belgrade and Serbia also of DT, Dnevni Telegraph, and also 35,000 copies of my news magazine Evropljanin. And we are very successful in that.
But if I was President Milosevic, I would assume that your aim is to get me out of power. So why would they let you publish?
I really don't know. He is irrational man, and when you deal with somebody who is irrational, you cannot predict anything. Anyway, I think he will lose the power very soon, in 1 year or 1 year and a half. Very optimistic.
The centre of power in Belgrade is the so-called White Palace. It's here that Milosevic, who has ruled in one way or another for a decade, receives a constant stream of international envoys. He's such a control freak that the government camera person is instructed to film him from the same position every time. Ministers and diplomats have been, this past year, warning him to stop the slaughter in Kosovo. Milosevic, though, seems to thrive in these crises, bluffing until the last, using them to justify his iron grip on the country. The president wouldn't have liked the rebellious mood at the Telegraph Party. Among these people, he's seen as the key to Yugoslav's ruin. On this night, a leading opposition leader, Zoran Djindjic, finds hope that there can be a democratic revival in Serbia. But he concedes the difficulty of dealing with Milosevic.
It's not possible to have a normal conversation with him.
With Milosevic in power, we are going to lose Kosovo and Montenegro, not only. Maybe Vojvodina, maybe Sandžak, maybe other parts of country. Milosevic is destructive person.
That destructive character reveals itself in the clampdown on free expression at the universities and by broadcasters and journalists.
Dobar dan. Dnevni Telegraph. Okay, good. Isn't this a banned newspaper?
Yes, it is.
So how are you able to sell it?
I sell. Sometimes police take me my papers, sometimes no.
If the Daily Telegraph was published in Belgrade or anywhere else in Serbia, it would be much easier to confiscate every copy of the paper and finally to kill it off. The production site, though, is safe from the Serbian police. It's 500 kilometres away in Podgorica. And thus far, Milosevic has been unable to stop it becoming the free speech capital of Yugoslavia.
I sad mi na naslovnoj strani sutrašnje novine, znači od petka 15. januara, donosimo, noseća vest je da predstavnici srpskih partija sa Kosova najavljuju dolazak kod Miloševića ukoliko on i Milutinović ne dođu na Kosovo.
The stories are written in Belgrade and sent on a data line to Montenegro. There's a backup system should the Serb security police try to hack into the system.
Ja moram da priznam da je novinarski gledano da je ovo najzanimljivija situacija i situacija koju bi svaki novinar poželeo da doživi, makoliko neprijatna bila. Znači, toliko što je zanimljivo, što je uzbudljivo, što nije uobičajeno, a mi živimo od posla koji nije uobičajen. I to je jedini način borbe koji mi trenutno, jedino oružje koje mi posjedujemo i jedini način borbe koju mi vodimo protiv fašističkog ili staljinističkog režima u Srbiji.
Hosting the exile Belgrade media helps to raise opposition to Milosevic, and that suits Milo Đukanovic, the president of Montenegro, very well. Once a Milosevic ally, he's now his most dangerous opponent.
Našli za opravdano da sve one medije koje ugasi gospodin Milošević u Srbiji pomognemo i da im obezbijedimo, ukoliko to oni žele, da mogu da nastave sa slobodnim izlaženjem, štampanjem i emitovanjem u Crnoj Gori. Računamo da je to dovoljna pomoć na tom planu od Crne Gore Srbiji i njenoj demokratizaciji i računamo da je to pomoć koja se podrazumijeva u prelaznom periodu.
In Belgrade, though, the Democrats are struggling. At the Daily Telegraph, they're writing the paper the old-fashioned way. When the police closed down the paper in October, they seized the computers. But old technology is the least of Slavko Čeruvija's problems. He has to mastermind a complex smuggling operation, getting the papers from Montenegro and past the Serbian police.
This morning they stopped a train coming from Podgorica in town of Užice. It is a southern part of Serbia, and confiscate whole circulation intended to be distributed all around Serbia and in Belgrade. Yesterday they done the same thing, but on airport. I'm losing every day this 4 months money. All my reserves are running out at the moment.
Ali mislim da oni to ne mogu da ostvare.
One key to Milosevic holding power is his tight control over the extensive network of Serbian government radio and television stations. Independent TV stations like this one in the city of Kashak, south of Belgrade, are constantly in danger of being closed down for giving airtime to those brave enough to criticize Milosevic. A law was passed retrospectively to validate the media bans, and the Deputy Information Minister, Miodrag Popovic, is in the difficult position of having to defend it.
Media law was adopted in the parliament, again by the majority of the people who are ruling through the MPs, as in any country.
But you're a journalist. How do you?
Yeah, maybe I don't like it, but I have to accept it and I have to live with it.
Why don't you like it?
Well, I don't like it because it's not specific enough. It's very wide in definition. So it can be this and then it can be that.
It was the Kosovo War which made Milosevic desperate to limit critical Serbian reporting. He'd ordered Serbian paramilitaries into the southern province, where in the population of 2 million, the Serbs are outnumbered 9-1 by ethnic Albanians. Yet in a major miscalculation, instead of crushing the incipient Albanian rebellion, the war intensified. It was the Račak massacre of 45 villagers that finally galvanized international opinion to stop Milosevic's crusade in Kosovo. The survivors of Račak fled into the hills. Sali Vecai gave a detailed, coherent, believable account of what had happened.
E kanë morën ata kanë 24 vjet tuba. E ju kanë thonë kjo partia shka u konë poshtë e milicve, ju kanë thonë që tash renit në qëtu. I kanë renitën, kretja u kanë lidhë durë qështu për krye. E ju kanë thonë që tash këthe në prapë edhe ikni për oncë. Kur janë këthy ata për oncë, tjetra parti ka orë kënena tupë, qysh janë konë ata I ka përshkatu krej.
Very few of these eyewitness accounts emerged in the Serbian media. Milosevic dares not let people know what's happening here.
The final result of his policy will be losing Kosovo. I expect NATO troops very soon over there, not because I want them to. I think that conflict will be so terrible that they will have to come in. Even he will maybe ask them to come, to stop fighting.
It's an extreme irony that Milosevic's ultra-nationalistic policies may result in foreign troops in the very place, Kosovo, which he declares to be the heart and soul of Serbia.
Preko 1080 godina Srpska crkva postoji na ovim prostorima, na malom geografskom prostoru Kosova I Metohije postoji registrovano preko 1300 pravoslavnih crkava I manastira koje su naši preci podigli od 12. veka pa do danas.
Artemi Radicevic, the Serbian Orthodox bishop in Kosovo, insists that there can be no question of the territory being separated from Serbia.
Upravo već 2 godine I jače, ja zajedno sa predstavnicima Srba sa Kosova I Metohije obilazimo svet, obišli smo celu Evropu, Rusiju, Ameriku I svuda smo svedočili o Kosovu I Metohiji kao kolevci srpskog naroda, srpske duhovnosti I srpske kulture.
Milosevic has been exploiting the church's traditional links with Kosovo for more than a decade. But Bishop Artemi labels Milosevic the chief cause of the conflict and is seeking to oust him through the Serbian resistance movement.
Mislim da moramo raditi na promjeni režima u Srbiji da bi se moglo doći do demokratskog rješenja. Sa ovim režimom mi ne vidimo da je moguće demokratsko rješenje.
Milosevic is the antithesis of a democratic leader, and yet a significant proportion of Serbs still support him. While old-style communist regimes have been swept away across much of Eastern Europe, Milosevic has somehow managed to hang on. Whether his regime survives may well depend upon the advice that he gets from the leader of the Yugoslav United Left, Mira Markovic, also known as Mrs. Milosevic.
Najveća želja jugoslovenske levice je da svi jugoslovenski narodi žive zajedno, žive ravnopravno I žive bratski. Hvala vam lepo.
You might as well have added, as long as they do as we say. It was Mira, Milosevic's soulmate since they were teenagers, who late last year pushed for the closure of the critical media. And yet Mrs. Milosevic had, by all accounts, been astute at maintaining contact with the regime's critics, among them Slavko Čuruvija.
She could, and she used to do that to protect me in all circumstances except one. When Milosevic say, kill him or close him down.
The conventional wisdom is that Milosevic diverts the attention of the people, 65% of whom are reckoned to be living in poverty, by creating crises. In a war over Kosovo, they forget their domestic troubles in a surge of Serbian nationalism. We encountered such a display during an Orthodox New Year's ceremony in Montenegro. It was an impressive turnout on an appalling night. But there was no repeat of the previous anniversary, when Milosevic supporters attempted to invade government buildings. Some say it was an attempted coup d'etat. Montenegro literally means Black Mountain. There are many of them. They served as barriers against invaders over the centuries, such that Montenegrins like to characterize themselves as fiercely independent, a nationalist sentiment now being tapped by President Đukanović.
Zahvaljujući pogrešnoj autokratskoj politici gospodina Miloševića, Crna Gora ne ostvaruje svoju ravnopravnost u Jugoslaviji, a Jugoslavija nema međunarodni legitimitet niti jasnu perspektivu.
Đukanović is careful not to mention the I word, independence. Montenegrins, some of whom declare themselves to be ethnically Serbs, are not yet ready to break with Yugoslavia. But the Đukanović government is defining Montenegro's separateness, gaining exemptions from sanctions hitting the rest of Yugoslavia, seeking foreign investment, trying to revive the tourist industry along its magnificent coastline. The Yugoslav government is steadily losing control.
Milosevic totally lost the battle for institutions in Montenegro. He doesn't control any institution. President, parliament, government, state media, police and secret police, all those vital institutions are out of his hands.
Sedan Darmanovic is head of the United States-sponsored Center for Democracy and Human Rights in Montenegro.
Đukanović has also in his hands state machinery, and he fights against Milosevic like a state against state. He really leads now the most dangerous anti-Milosevic bloc in the country. He is his most dangerous opponent.
There is a certain nervousness in Montenegro about this blatant challenge to Milosevic. Some fear that the Yugoslav Air Force and army could be sent in to reassert Belgrade's authority. In Montenegro, they hope that this will be the last year of the last significant dictator in Europe. But he may claim another victim before then. The Daily Telegraph looks like closing. The final hope is for emergency funding from Europe or the United States.
If they don't send any money till the end of February, I'm afraid I will have to shut my shop down. First of all, the DT Dnevni Telegraph will be killed, let's say so.
Technically, there is still a way out of this. The publisher would need to pay fines totaling about $700,000. It's not a serious option.
They don't want my money, they want me see...
They want you silenced.
Yeah, silenced and in bankruptcy.